Ladies and gentlemen, there is a silent killer that has robbed more dreams, crushed more ambitions, and imprisoned more brilliant minds than failure ever could. That killer is fear. But fear is not real. Fear is a state of mind, and like any state of mind, it can be mastered. Today I am here to tell you do not have to bow to it. You do not have to live in its shadow, because once you understand fear, once you confront it, you hold the power to destroy it forever. Fear is a liar, a deceiver, a thief of your potential. And yet, most men allow it to lead their lives, justify their failures, and dim their light. Not you, not today. Because today you learn not only how to fight fear, but how to abolish it. Fear is not a tangible force. It cannot be touched, measured, or stored in a bottle. It is entirely a product of the mind, a construct of the imagination that thrives in the absence of understanding. What we call fear is often just uncertainty wrapped in negative belief, given power by repetition and inaction. It is crucial to understand this. Fear has no power unless you grant it permission to exist. It is a lie, a phantom, a shadow on the wall that only appears large because we are looking at it through the lens of doubt. When you identify fear for what it truly is, a mental illusion, you take the first and most important step toward mastery. Napoleon Hill taught us that all thoughts, whether positive or negative, attract similar thoughts. When you feed your mind with worry, hesitation, and imaginary catastrophes, you are planting the seeds of fear. And what you plant, you grow. But here's the secret: just as quickly as you can plant a negative thought, you can plant a positive one. You are the only thinker in your own mind. No one else controls your thoughts. The moment you recognize that fear begins in the mind and not in the outside world, you take back your power. Consider this: two individuals stand before the same challenge. One sees danger and retreats. The other sees opportunity and advances. The difference is not in the obstacle. It is in the perception. The fearful person magnifies the threat, feeding it with imagination until it becomes paralyzing. The courageous person analyzes the same situation and focuses on action. Where one sees a wall, the other sees a ladder. What changed? Only the thoughts, only the interpretation of reality. The illusion of fear collapsed when confronted by clarity and intention. Many fears are not born from actual experience, but from anticipated failure. We fear what might happen, not what has happened. This is why fear is so deceptive. It wears the mask of protection while binding you to mediocrity. But if you never question the validity of your fear, you will obey it without resistance. You must examine the root of your fear. Ask yourself, what am I afraid of? And is that fear based on fact or fiction? When you shine the light of awareness on fear, it begins to wither. Like a vampire exposed to the sun, fear cannot survive the heat of mental clarity. There is no external enemy greater than the inner tyrant of uncontrolled thought. Fear often enters through the back door of the mind, through idle time, through listening to the wrong voices, through surrendering your mental space to imagine misfortune. To destroy fear, you must close those doors. You must take command of your inner world as a general commands an army. You must become vigilant against fearful thinking, the way a warrior guards his territory. Once you identify fear as a mental illusion, you will see it for what it truly is: powerless, unless you believe in it. There comes a moment in every person's life when a choice must be made: to rise above fear or to remain enslaved by it. This decision, though often made unconsciously, determines the entire course of a person's destiny. Fear will not politely ask for permission to lead your life. It will take control by default if you do not take control first. The question is simple but profound: will you dominate fear, or will you allow it to dominate you? There is no middle ground, no safe place of compromise. One must be the master and the other must submit. To dominate fear requires a conscious, deliberate act of the will. You must stand before your fears, look them in the eye, and declare that you are greater than any imagined failure, loss, or rejection. This is not arrogance. It is awareness of your own power. Fear feeds on indecision. The longer you hesitate, the more deeply it roots itself in your mind. But the instant you decide with firmness and conviction that you will not allow fear to dictate your actions, you begin to weaken its hold. Decisions made with courage cut fear off at the source. No one is born courageous. Courage is developed the same way muscles are built, through resistance, pressure, and repetition. The key lies in making daily choices that align with strength rather than weakness. Every time you take a step in the direction of what scares you, you send a message to your subconscious mind: I am in control. And the mind, being obedient to your dominant thoughts, begins to respond. You start to feel stronger, more stable, more grounded. But this shift does not occur unless you make the decision to lead yourself. Fear cannot be reasoned with. It must be overridden. Fear whispers leasing that you're not ready, that you'll fail, that others will judge you. But these are not truths. These are tactics. They are the strategies fear uses to maintain its throne. And the more you listen, the more you shrink. To dominate fear is to speak back with truthing that you are capable, that failure is a teacher, not an executioner, and that no other person's opinion can define your worth. This is how fear loses its voice. When you raise yours louder, one of the most important realizations a person can have is that fear and faith both demand belief in something you cannot see. Fear demands belief in failure. Faith demands belief in possibility. You choose which one occupies your mind. The person who dominates fear has trained themselves to choose faith again and again, regardless of how they feel. They understand that feelings are unreliable guides, and decisions must be made from purpose, not emotion. Fear may still appear, but it will no longer command. You must make the inner decision, repeated every day, that fear is not your master. You are not here to survive under its rule. You are here to lead, to grow, to expand, to fulfill your purpose without apology. And that begins the moment you decide that fear no longer gets a vote. The mind cannot hold two dominating thoughts at the same time. When fear takes root, it does so because there is an absence of a clear, definite purpose. A mind occupied by uncertainty becomes a breeding ground for fear. But when that same mind is consumed by a burning desire, a clearly defined goal, and a purpose so strong it keeps you awake at night, fear has no room to exist. Purpose is the antidote to fear. It gives direction to thought, energy to action, and discipline to emotion. It turns hesitation into motion and doubt into certainty. A person without purpose is like a ship without a rudder, drifting wherever the wind of circumstance blows. And fear, being opportunistic, will steer that vessel straight into the rocks. But once a definite purpose is established, once you fix your mind on a worthy goal and resolve to achieve it regardless of obstacles, fear is forced to retreat. The human mind, when committed to a singular mission, becomes a force so powerful that even fear cannot withstand it. Fear thrives in minds that wander, but it starves in minds that are focused. Replacing fear-based thoughts with definite purpose is not a one-time event. It is a daily discipline. Every day, you must remind yourself what you are moving toward. Write it down. Speak it aloud. See it in your mind's eye as if it were already real. This is not fantasy. This is the training of your mental faculties. A mind that can clearly envision its purpose becomes immune to the distractions of fear. It does not waste time worrying about what might go wrong because it is too occupied with what must go right. Purpose transforms your relationship with fear. Instead of being an obstacle, fear becomes a signal, pointing you toward where your growth lies. When your purpose is greater than your fear, action becomes inevitable. You begin to step into situations you once avoided, speak truths you once silenced, and take risks you once feared, all because your goal demands it. Purpose becomes your compass, guiding you through the fog of uncertainty. Fear tells you to shrink. Purpose tells you to rise. Fear suggests you play it safe. Purpose dares you to live fully. The choice is yours, and the power lies in the thoughts you choose to repeat. If you constantly rehearse fear-based thoughts, what if I fail? What if they judge me? What if I lose? You are training your mind to accept defeat. But if you repeat purpose-driven thoughts, why I must succeed, who will benefit when I do, what kind of life I am building, you are training your mind to conquer. Definite purpose eliminates confusion, and with clarity comes power. People who know what they want and why they want it are far more dangerous to fear than those who are simply trying to survive. Purpose sharpens the mind like a blade, cutting through hesitation, cutting through fear, cutting through the lies that have kept you stuck. When you replace fear with purpose, your energy shifts, your confidence grows, and your path begins to open. Fear cannot survive in the presence of bold, decisive action. It feeds on stillness, on delay, on overthinking. The longer you sit in hesitation, the stronger fear becomes. But the moment you take a step, no matter how small, you begin to strip fear of its power. This is the great truth. Fear is paralyzed by motion. Every action you take in spite of fear weakens its grip on your mind. You do not wait for courage to act. You act your way into courage. Repetition of bold action builds a new identity, one of confidence, resilience, and forward momentum. The key is not to act once, but to act repeatedly. One bold move is not enough if it is followed by retreat. You must make bold action your habit, your standard, your way of life. Action repeated with purpose becomes behavior. Behavior repeated with consistency becomes identity. This is how you evolve. You do not think your way out of fear, you move through it again and again until it no longer has control. The more you act, the more evidence your mind gathers that fear was lying, and that you are, in fact, capable of far more than you believed. Most people wait for the fear to go away before they act. That moment never comes. Fear does not leave quietly, it leaves when it is challenged. You challenge it by walking directly into the thing you fear, not with recklessness, but with intention. You make the phone call. You have the difficult conversation. You launch the project. You speak the truth. Every time you move, while fear screams in your ear, you remind yourself that fear is not the authority. You are. Bold action creates momentum, and momentum creates confidence. Confidence is not something you are born with. It is something you earn through movement. When you take action, even imperfect action, you train your nervous system to adapt, to grow, and to become comfortable in the uncomfortable. The discomfort does not go away entirely, but it becomes manageable. It no longer dictates your choices. This is the beginning of liberation from fear. There is no substitute for experience. You can read, study, visualize, and prepare, but until you act, you do not own the lesson. Action is the final bridge between fear and freedom. It is where theory becomes truth. And each time you cross that bridge, you leave a little more fear behind. You step closer to the person you were meant to be. Fear tries to keep you in place because it knows that once you begin moving consistently, you become unstoppable. Repeated boldness becomes a pattern. That pattern reshapes your mind. It convinces your subconscious that you are someone who takes charge, who pushes boundaries, who doesn't back down in the face of resistance. You don't need to be fearless to act. You need only to act often enough that fear no longer makes the decisions. In the furnace of repeated action, fear is burned away, revealing the strength that was always within you. The company you keep in your mind determines the direction of your life. If you allow doubt, negativity, and fear to take up residence in your thoughts, they will shape your beliefs and actions accordingly. But if you choose to surround yourself with faith, faith in your abilities, faith in your purpose, and faith in a greater vision for your life, you begin to transform your internal environment into one of power, not paralysis. Faith and fear cannot coexist in the same mental space. One must dominate. If you do not consciously fill your mind with faith, fear will find its way in and grow silently in the background. Faith is not blind hope. It is a conscious belief in the unseen, a trust in the process even when the outcome is not yet visible. It is the voice that says, "I will find a way," when logic says, "There's no way." Faith is the decision to move forward, not because you are guaranteed success, but because you are committed to growth. It is the inner force that strengthens your spine when fear tries to bend it. Surrounding yourself with faith means building an inner fortress so strong that external challenges cannot penetrate it. You must be vigilant about what thoughts you allow to take root. Doubt enters subtly. It disguises itself as caution, practicality, even humility. But beneath the surface, it is fear trying to regain control. To defeat it, you must choose faith with intensity. Feed your mind with empowering ideas. Speak words of affirmation. Consume content that lifts you, not poisons you. Guard your mind like a gatekeeper protects a kingdom. Every negative suggestion, every limiting belief, every voice that says you can't, reject them all and replace them with the language of faith. The people you surround yourself with matter just as much. Are they builders of belief or spreaders of fear? Choose your environment carefully. Spend time with those who see possibility, who speak vision, who live with conviction. Let their courage feed your own. Let their faith awaken yours. If you constantly absorb the fear of others, it becomes your own. But if you align with those who believe, your belief multiplies. Faith is contagious, just as fear is. Surrounding yourself with faith also means building rituals of strength. Begin your day with intention. Reflect on your goals. Visualize your success. Speak your truth out loud. Train your mind to expect victory, not defeat. When fear arises, and it will, answer it immediately with faith. Refuse to entertain the what-ifs that lead to weakness. Replace them with what-ifs that lead to strength. What if I succeed? What if I grow? What if everything works in my favor? Faith becomes stronger the more you act on it. It is a muscle, and every act of courage is a repetition. Each time you move forward in spite of fear, you tell your mind, faith is in control here. That message, repeated daily, begins to take root. You start to think differently, feel differently, move differently. Fear may still knock at the door, but it will find no one home because faith has already taken its place. When you leave a way out, fear will always find a way in. As long as there is an escape route, a backup plan rooted in comfort, or a path of retreat, your mind will hesitate at the edge of commitment. To destroy fear forever, you must burn the bridge behind you. You must eliminate the option of turning back and decide, with full conviction, that there is no reality worth living except the one you are creating now. This is not recklessness. It is resolve. It is the kind of decision that transforms a person from a hesitant dreamer into a powerful force of nature. Fear gains strength from indecision. When you give yourself alternatives that lead back to safety, you give your fear room to negotiate. It whispers, if this doesn't work, you can always go back. But that voice must be silenced. The great achievers in history did not succeed because they had perfect conditions or endless support. They succeeded because they made a decision that left no room for failure, no space for surrender, no path back to mediocrity. They crossed the line, set it on fire, and told themselves, I'm going forward, and only forward. When you burn the bridge behind you, you force yourself to innovate, to adapt, to rise. You awaken dormant parts of your strength because your survival, your success, depends on it. The human spirit is at its most powerful when it knows there is no fallback. You begin to think with intensity, to act with purpose, to move with urgency. Fear, sensing that there is no ground to retreat to, begins to lose its influence. It can no longer hold you hostage when you have already committed your entire being to the mission. Too many people never rise because they're half in and half out. They dip their toes in purpose while keeping a foot in their comfort zone. But greatness demands total commitment. It demands that you close the door behind you and throw away the key, that you tell yourself, there is no plan B because plan A is going to work, not by luck, not by chance, but by persistence, grit, and an unbreakable decision to see it through. This is the kind of resolve that turns fear into fuel. Burning the bridge is symbolic of emotional and psychological transformation. It means cutting ties with limiting beliefs, old habits, toxic environments, and anything that makes it easy to fall back into the person you used to be. You must identify everything that represents your old way of living, the excuses, the distractions, the dependencies, and eliminate them. Declare that they no longer belong to you. You are not the person who hesitates. You are not the person who quits. You are the person who moves forward with such finality that fear has no footing. When there is no going back, the only direction left is forward. That is where power lies. That is where freedom begins. You move with the confidence of someone who has nothing to lose and everything to gain. You wake up each day with fire in your chest, not because you have no fear, but because you have chosen not to give it a place to rest.